I know, you don't agree. Your favorite hasn't made it here and now you're mad. Please feel free to rage in the comments below. That's what they're there for. Thing is, 2019 may be a contender for one of the best years ever when it comes to in-ring competition. Every month offered something new, and even by April we thought it was over, people kept delivering. It means this list was not easy, as we did have to leave bouts out that were truly amazing. Just sums it up, and we've all been very fortunate to enjoy such a ride. Let's do it though. Brace yourself. I'm Simon from What Culture. Hit that subscribe button. This is the 10 best matches of 2019. Number 10, Okada vs Sanada. Happening at the G1 Climax, this was yet another entry in the Okada is the best book. The issue in 2019 was that he didn't have a proper rival to clash with. Tanahashi had seen their war conclude in the same tournament when Okada bested him in 22 minutes, and new rival Kenny Omega had left to ply his trade in AEW. Ibushi will be that guy in 2020, and while Naito could fill the void, he kinda just does his own thing, his own crazy thing. This is why Sanada decided he would be the guy to stand up. An expert technician, their war was so good here that the emotion dripping from Sanada was like nothing we'd ever seen from the man. The champion even roared in his face at one point, which breathed new life into Sanada as he came back with fight and fury. The near fall that greeted the end of this was met with a true reaction by the fans. If you're looking for drama in your pro wrestling, this is for you. It was like a wonderful play where people just happen to hit each other. Number 9, the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers. Anytime these four lock up, there's magic, but it hit a whole new level at AEW's All Out, where both teams decided they had to steal the show. It's unfair to say the Young Bucks are just spot monkeys these days, as they do so much more, but we also have to remember why they got that label to begin with. It's because they're damn good at doing spots. That was at the heart of this and why you couldn't close your eyes during it. I mean, Pentagon hit a Canadian destroyer off the top of a ladder through a table. I get that it's too much for some, but come on, at least tip your hat. That was unreal and genuinely unique in this kind of match. That's what everyone involved kept doing too. You thought you'd seen it all and then they had something else up their sleeve. The fact this was the rubber belt just added to what you were looking at. You could completely believe they wanted to win, even if it meant they died. It has to be called one of the more violent scraps of the year, but it's also filled with depth and narrative joy to keep you engaged. In short, it absolutely rocks. Number 8, Cody vs Dustin. Following on from that came this classic too. The centerpiece of AEW's Double or Nothing pay-per-view, people in the crowd were crying. Think of that, you never see it anymore unless someone is shedding tears because they just watched the end of Hell in a Cell 2019. Apologize, that was unnecessary. Underlining that right now Cody is one of the best storytellers in wrestling, this was a real emotional ride, even though Dustin was bleeding like a man who was at the end. There was very much an idea of young versus old as Cody cartwheeled in front of his brother, but all that did was spurn the elder sibling on. There was shenanigans as Brandy Rhodes attacked Dustin from behind before DDP dragged her out of there, and that's when the Rudd stuff began to flow. It certainly was impactful and quite the sight, but it really did increase the tension, as you could tell with one look into the audience that fans were visibly gasping. Dustin gave it all with his babyface comeback, but it was to no avail. After Cody had won, the two embraced, and it's a mystery as to why WWE didn't make more of this when they could. It was as old school as they come, it was all the better for it, and showed you what AEW was capable of. That may sound a little silly and redundant, but I know more than one person who found a new love for the former Goldust, and their excitement at a brand new American wrestling promotion tripled from that point on. Number 7, Adam Cole vs Johnny Gargano. I was a lucky pup in 2019 as I was here live for this match at NXT TakeOver New York. It was the first time I had attended an NXT pay-per-view in the flesh, and to see Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano clash over the world title was simply wonderful. Bringing about a sense of drama you don't often see in wrestling today, the true wonderful thing was that everyone in the arena that night was gripped. Every strike move and ridiculous flip was met with cheers and panic, and the love for both performers on this night was like nothing else. Deep down, everybody wanted to see Gargano finally get his due, but Cole was also reminding the planet why he's one of the best there is. It also didn't hurt that he was essentially a hometown boy, given that his place of birth was only 200 miles away. It had everything too, right down to the type of selling that old-timers claim have vanished from the squared circle in recent years. The stipulation of 2 out of 3 falls only added to this, and when Johnny did indeed claim that third pin, you would have thought the crowd had all just won $1 million. Electric from start to finish, this is a match you owe it to yourself to see. It'll turn even the most cynical wrestling fan. That's what it's all about. Number 6, Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston. Emotion is everything, and this WrestleMania 35 clash had it in spades. The entire audience in New York was desperate to see Kofi Kingston finish his surprising journey to the world title with a big win, and yet they still wouldn't allow themselves to believe. So many times these things have gone in the wrong direction. So when he did hit the Trouble in Paradise right in somebody's head to win that big gold belt, it was wonderful. No one deserved it more, and the sheer glee on his face was easy to see. A lot has to be said for Daniel Bryan's performance, but at this stage has to be considered one of the best wrestlers of the decade. He controlled the pace, but it never felt dull or methodical, and Kingston's flurries of hope were just enough to make you believe before those same hopes were dashed. Even outside of that, it was the small touches, such as Bryan reversing Kofi's double foot stop into a Boston Crab. It was like he'd had everything scouted. At its most basic, this was just feel-good drama that put a smile on your face, but never forget, that is what wrestling is meant to be. Number 5, Jon Moxley versus Tomohiro Ishii. Another from the G1 climax, and one that helped simply because seeing the former Dean Ambrose in New Japan was entertaining throughout the year. Away from that, just so nuts. Both of these guys are known for not really giving a damn, and that was proven true here. Moxley had a point to prove Ishii is brutal, and the two lived up to that within seconds. It felt like a proper fight, and both had decided that getting a scalp over the other would be a huge deal for their careers. At one point, Ishii just spat in Moxley's face, and rather than get too mad, Mox just offered his rival a chair and said, "Why don't you smash me in the head?" A nice and normal thing to do. It carried on when Jon was jumping through a table with Ishii laid upon it with a splash, and that just blew minds. When did you ever see Ambrose do that? Exactly. Therein lies the point. He looked like an absolute monster and a genuine threat, which brought him up to Ishii's level, something he desperately needed as he's made his way through new waters. After a 20-minute war, it was Moxley who had his hand raised, and in doing so brought his new character to a new audience. In this moment, no one was better or cooler than Jon flippin' Moxley. Number 4, Tomohiro Ishii versus Shingo Takaki. Picture the scene. On one side is Takaki, who is just the human version of a flying brick, and on the other is Ishii, and we've already talked about him. He could literally be a brick or a wall of cement. If you ever wanted a match that you could show someone to try and convince them that they were wrong about wrestling being quote-unquote fake, this may be the one. Was stiffer than old bread. Knowing they would need to build the crowd, Takaki held off going too nuts in order to get the right reaction, so before then just sold the amount of damage he was taking as if he was about to keel over. When they both started busting out their feats of power, the whole thing just took a massive step forward. Ishii chopped him in the throat eventually, the throat, to which Takaki responded by just screaming in his face. It's like animals battling. The fact Shingo won was even more important. Having this kind of clash and then walking away the victor made you think twice about ever doubting him again, and it didn't matter that Ishii lost. He's Ishii, one bad word and he will drop you where you stand, and you won't even remember it. Number 3, Shingo Takagi versus Will Osprey. Takagi was undefeated entering this match, and Will Osprey, well, he was Will Osprey. They were battling in the New Japan Best of Super Juniors final, and the only way the Brit was walking away with his hand raised is if he put in a career-defining performance. Unsurprisingly, in 2019, Osprey did just that, and in true cheesy fashion, the real winners here were the fans. Will wrestled the whole thing as if it was the fight of his life as he gradually picked apart his bigger challenger by using everything he'd learned from the tournament so far. He had to overcome more odds when Shingo started to chop the skin off his body, which was followed up when he just threw a bottle at Will Osprey. He was pissed and not playing around. It set the crowd off as things got out of hand, and the fact Osprey wouldn't stay down started to allow them to believe. As for the final sequence, just forget about it. One of the most ludicrous things you will see in 2019, the sheer pace and athleticism on show was something else. So when Will actually managed to pull this out the bag, it was just the icing on the cake. Soon after, he was being called the best in the world and a future Hall of Famer, and if this is the level he's capable of, well, he may already be there now. Number 2, Kenny Omega versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. Wrestle Kingdom has become a must-see date in most wrestling fans' calendars, and number 13 was no different when Kenny Omega and Hiroshi Tanahashi stepped into the ring to face each other for the IWGP Heavyweight title. It all started with that build. On the one side, we had Tanahashi, a legend who was vocal about how much he disliked Omega's dangerous style, and on the other was Kenny, who claimed Tana was old-fashioned. While this was worked into the narrative, it was how they actually felt, and this reality simply added to the encounter. You picked a side and you went with it no matter what. It was the best of sports, and it was the best of, dare I say it, entertainment. This was pushed hard almost instantly as Omega introduced a table and yet didn't put Tanahashi through it. The Ace's back scraped the edge of it, and Kenny sold this like he was a dangerous madman that he'd already been accused of. From there, it was as if the Joker was fighting Batman. Both started to take tips and tricks from the other's playbook, including a poison rana from Tana, and that philosophy shift just rewarded anybody who had decided to invest from the start. The fact it was the old man who took the title off the young gun was just even sweeter and proved that true talent never dies. Even with thousands of miles between them, you have to imagine that this feud isn't over, and I for one can't wait to see them go another damn round. Number 1, Jay White versus Kota Ibushi. Also the G1 Climax final, Jay White and Kota Ibushi won 2019 by doing that classic trick of listening to the audience and then giving them what they want. It was quite traditional in the sense that the beloved babyface outthought the asshole heel, and having the Bullet Club at ringside was the final piece of the puzzle. He just didn't know what they were going to do. Admittedly, that didn't last long, but they did what they had to, which was ruin Ibushi's ankle, and that surely was the plan. From here, Jay came into his own. The obnoxious look on his face made you want to punch him in his jaw, and the prolonged attack as Ibushi sold as if he was finished just made you want that comeback even more. Obviously, this happened sooner or later, but because the fans were desperate for it, it tied into everything you'd already seen. As soon as Kota had entered badass mode, you couldn't contain the place. It was like a dead man had come back to life. That does happen in wrestling. It was a fantastic definition and showcase of wrestling's core principles, and it did all of that without going too far out of left field. Throwing that, of course, the win meant Ibushi had won the 2019 G1, and it was too much as yet more people started to cry in the audience. Flippin' A. Know of any other matches that should have been in this list? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles, and follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. My name is Simon from What Culture, and I will talk to you again soon.